Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Flèche, Wallonne 2023, 194 kilometers, about 120 miles in length. And of course, it has the famous Mur de Huy. This climb is vicious at 1.3 kilometers long, but really proper, it's 900 meters. Right turn 900 meters straight up this climb with 19% sections as we go from the right turn all the way up to the summit finish of today's Flèche Wallonne. Now, we saw Amstel Gold and we saw UAE Team Emirates just blowing up the race to pieces, catching the break at 105 kilometers to go. And then Tadej Pogačar getting in that massive break, controlling everybody and decimating the whole entire peloton and field of competitors at Amstel Gold. So what does UAE Team Emirates have in store for us today here at Flèche? Well, right away when the cameras come on, we have 140 kilometers to go, and there's a break of 8 riders up the road. Now, we have Nason in there from AG2R. Of course, Zimmerman, Intermarché, he's represented up there. A strong rider to be in an early breakaway. And then we have Alpecin de Koenig, Søren Kragh Andersen, another super strong rider in this front group. Søren Kragh Andersen, if he waits later into the race, he could be a big time favorite here. He's certainly on good form. And so going early in this group, Søren Kragh Andersen knows that he wants to try to mix up the chemistry with the tactics and try to put UAE Team Emirates under a little bit of stress, and then hopefully one of his other teammates could get up there and try to play something on the Mur de Huy the last time up to the summit finish if UAE Team Emirates haven't already blown it apart. Now, this group of 8, they have about a 3-minute, 15-second gap on the peloton being led by Ineos, helping out UAE Team Emirates at the front. The gap will still extend for the next 20-30 kilometers, and they'll get almost up to 4 minutes, about 3 minutes and 45 seconds, when all of a sudden now we start seeing it start going curb to curb with about 90 kilometers to go here at Flèche Wallonne. Now everyone's starting to get nervous because this is when they're going to enter the circuit here that's 37 kilometers long, and you have 3 good climbs. Côte d'Arif and Côte de Sherif are the 2 earlier climbs, and then of course Mur de Huy that comes at the finish. This circuit is always historic amongst the pro racers, and when we're talking about winning Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, you know Tadej Pogačar wants the trifecta up here in the Belgium Classic scenes. And yes, I'm throwing Amstel Gold in there because it's pretty close to Belgium too. Either way, when you're up there in the north up here, they're always exciting races, and this week of racing is what the GC riders and the Classic one-day riders always want on their resume, is at Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, or a Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and if they can get all 3, why not? And Pogačar is on form. So again, let's get back in there because this group of 8, as we hit the Mur de Huy with 75 kilometers to go, this is when we see Nason, AG2R. He starts coming out the back. That'll leave 7 guys in the front group. Now they'll stay together to about just under 60 kilometers to go when it's Søren Kragh Andersen that starts putting in a dig. And then we start seeing riders coming out the back fast, as it's Johan Means from Bingle that's coming out first. Yetzi Bull, the Spanish rider from BH, he's coming out with Daryl Empey. Raul Garcia, Kern Pharma, he's coming out. Jakob Hinsgol, he's up there with the 2 leaders in the front, Zimmerman and Søren Kragh Andersen, but he's only going to stay for a few more kilometers, and then we're going to see the X rider get popped. Now we got 2 riders up there, and they're going full gas. Søren Kragh Andersen and Jörg Zimmerman as the Intermarché rider and the Alpecin de Koenig rider are throwing in as hard as they can, trying to put pressure on UAE Team Emirates. What's happening in the back the first time up the Mur looks pretty calm, if you can call it that way, but it's curb to curb. Nobody's putting in big time accelerations on the UAE team trying to attack them, as we see UAE have it under control going up over the summit of the Mur de Huy for the first passage. We got 75 kilometers more to go though, and there's going to be some action at the finish here at Flèche Wallonne. Now we see the front group, the 2 riders up there. We're coming around up for the second passage of the Mur de Huy. Those 2 riders are still locked together. And then all of a sudden, we're going to start seeing some attacks from the back as we see the first rider going up the Mur de Huy for the second time. Samuel Battistella throws in attack, and he's got Walters from Jumbo-Visma locked onto his wheel. Walters will drop off. Samuel Battistella will go solo as he's trying to get up to those 2 leaders. And then from behind, we see Pseudo Quick Step. We see it's Ver Varvaki back there that's throwing in an attack. He's coming across up to Battistella. Now Varvaki had thrown in one more attack before the Mur de Huy started for this last lap, but he didn't get off on that time. Now he's bridged up to Battistella, and these two riders will only take a few kilometers before they bridge up to the two in front to make 4 riders up front. Now behind, we see UAE team members got it all under control. They got 5 riders on the front with Felix Großschartner, George Bennett, Mark Hirschi, Diego Ulisses, and of course Tadej Pogačar on the front of the field. We come into the slight cross when I want to point this section out just after the Mur de Huy as we see Mark Hirschi takes the front. This was golden teamwork right here because up front, Felix Großschartner had already been riding the front for a lot here at Flèche Wallonne. And of course, George Bennett had already been on the front often. Now as we're coming into this crosswind section, Mark Hirschi, UAE team members, knows he's got some form. So he's going to do a good acceleration. And this will keep Diego Ulisses and Tadej Pogačar at the front through this crosswind with about 30 kilometers to go in today's Flèche Wallonne. Golden rule here is to keep your main leader, Tadej Pogačar, up front and out of danger, which is why Mark Hirschi has taken over for Felix Großschartner and George Bennett. Now, as the crosswind finishes, he'll back off. We'll see the team start to come back together. And then up front, we start seeing some action with about 20 kilometers to go. We'll see Zimmerman up front starting to come out of the break. That'll leave 3 riders up front. Now, as the cameras fan back, we see a crash in the peloton. What happened when I dissect the crash? Well, it looks like Joaquim Rodriguez, the Movistar rider, got in a little tight, overlapped some wheels, fell over, landed on the Albacete de Koenig rider, Jimmy Johnson, who both those riders went down. Now the next rider to come into that group there with the crashed bodies and bikes is going to be Nielsen Palace EF Education. He'll go down on today's Flèche Wallonne, and then just off over to the left, we see it's Andreas Krohn that went top 10 in the Amstel Gold Race. And then when I back the camera up, let's back it up a little bit before the crash, as we see Jimmy Johnson going down, look right over to the right behind him. It's Tadej Pogačar, UAE team members, that's almost tied up in this crash. How the Slovenian avoided it, I don't know, but he seems to be able to pull out some magical tricks whenever there's crashes. I gotta believe it helps that when you're super fresh, your legs are feeling good, you're not hurting, you can see more stuff in the peloton because Tadej Pogačar seems to avoid crashes all the time when we're talking about that first week at the Tour de France. And now here at Flèche Wallonne with 20 kilometers to go, Tadej Pogačar is almost going down. Look just over behind him to the right. We'll see it's Mark Hirschi. And as Mark Hirschi passes by on the right, of course, he looks over to the left to make sure Tadej Pogačar, his team leader here for UAE Team Emirates, is not tied up in that crash. He sees he's clear. Now let's move the camera to the front of the peloton at about this exact same moment because Jumbo-Visma's Sam Oomen is throwing in attack. We see the Jumbo-Visma rider throwing in hard. Just a few guys back though is George Bennett from UAE Team Emirates controlling everything at the front because you know back there it's Tadej Pogačar and Mark Hirschi trying to close the gaps after almost getting caught up in that crash. So they're not at the front at this moment. So George Bennett's doing some magical intelligent riding up here for UAE Team Emirates to control the speed of the group going up this climb and keep Sam Oomen's attack under control. Now up front, 3 riders. About 15 kilometers to go. All of a sudden, we see Louis Vervaeke off the front. How did this happen? They got 45-second gap, and the 3 guys up front aren't working well together. Let's back the film up like they did live, and we'll see Søren Kragh Andersen opened up the gap to Louis Vervaeke, the quick-step rider, because Samuel Battistelli wouldn't come through. We see Søren Kragh Andersen tried to wave him through, and Samuel Battistelli doesn't want any of it as his legs are starting to get tired, and so the gap opens up. Big time acceleration there, of course, from Søren Kragh Andersen to close back up to Louis Vervaeke, and then Battistelli still right there. Now the 3 will start working well together, but you got to ask yourself when you're sitting on the Chesterfield, how much time are they giving up to the train of UAE Team Emirates behind that are keeping everything under control here at Flèche Wallonne. Now we got 10 kilometers to go. This is when we start seeing things get nervous. The peloton starts going wide, and we start seeing Israel Premier Tech coming to the front. George Bennett gets a little bit lost with 9.5 kilometers to go. And Diego Ulisses, the veteran, the Italian veteran for UAE team members, we see him passing on the right side, going straight to the front because he knows George Bennett has finally gone over his limit after doing some magical work here at Flèche Wallonne. Now, as we come into 7.5 kilometers, 8 kilometers to go, and we're starting the penultimate climb here at Flèche Wallonne, Côte de Sharif, we see it's Diego Ulisses on the front, but we go up to the front of the group here to the 3 leaders. It's Louis Vervaeke. We see his fan club sign right there as he's throwing in the attack for Pseudo Quickstep. You know he had a little motivation with all his club fans. Big old banner there and his team and his friends there cheering on the side as Louis Vervaeke throws in a big acceleration and drops Soren Kragh Andersen out the back, along with Samuel Battistella. Now the UAE team member, its crew behind, will absorb those 2 riders, so there's only one up front. When we look at Diego Ulisses on the front of the peloton, he's going at a pace that's making where nobody wants to attack. You look at the back of the peloton, and Sergio Higuita from Bora Hansgrohe's got his teammate in front of him. Something must have happened to him. Maybe he popped, maybe he got caught out because he went into that super technical left and narrow road before we started the Côte de Sharif. But Bora Hansgrohe's not having a great showing here with under 7 kilometers to go. We'll see Sergio Higuita do one more big effort as his teammate blows in front, looks left over his shoulder. Come on, Sergio, you got to close it. Higuita throws in a massive effort, and then the cameras don't show us if he actually closed the gap or not because we go back up to the front. Louis Vervaeke's going solo over the summit, and when we look at the peloton being led by UAE team members, they got 3 riders on the front. Diego Ulisses doing a fantastic job. Mark Hirschi sitting second, and Tadej Pogačar third with under 7 kilometers to go here at Flèche Wallonne. Now, Diego Ulisses is throwing down on the front, trying to keep everything together, and they're trying to hold back Mark Hirschi for that last big acceleration to keep Tadej Pogačar in a great position with 900 meters to go when the Mur de Huy starts proper. They come along the river. We see Diego Ulisses is starting to lose some power as we see it starting to go curb to curb, and they're getting swarmed on the left side. So Mark Hirschi looks back over his shoulder. See, he's got Pog there, and he throws in a big-time acceleration. To my disbelief, somehow with one foot in the grave, being buried alive here is going to be Diego Ulisses, who will do one more appearance at the front for Tadej Pogačar and Mark Hirschi. Once he pulls off, Hirschi's doing one more acceleration because they're going to leave the river, make the right bend, and start the Mur de Huy here, the famous climb at Flèche Wallonne. As they start coming up, all of a sudden, Israel Premier Tech is in a drag race with Mark Hirschi. As we go under the 1K banner, we see Mark Hirschi. He's at the front for Tadej Pogačar. He does one more acceleration, not quite able to pass Israel Premier Tech that's on the left side because they got Michael Woods, and I told you guys to keep an eye out for Michael Woods on yesterday's Beyond the Covers, and now Israel Premier Tech's trying to do a big time show here for Michael Woods as they're coming into the final bend with 900 meters to start the Mur de Huy proper. We see Mark Hirschi just before the right turn. He gives the elbow there. He looks over his shoulder. I'm sure he'd probably say good luck Tadej Pogačar as he puts him in 3rd position to start the right turn with 900 meters. Now we see Israel Premier Tech, who won the battle coming into the climb, along with Team Ineos, Magnus Sheffield on the front. Now Sheffield's throwing down hard as we see Michael Woods is locked in, Tadej Pogačar's just behind, and Tom Pidcock's in about 8th, 10th spot there. Mikel Landa's a little bit losing out because he's probably in about 14th, 15th spot, but Trek Segafredo got riders in the front. Now Sheffield's driving all the way to about 700 meters to go. Then the American will pull off hard left, and Michael Woods will continue some pace setting on the front. Now the Canadian rider, this is not the time you want to be on the front. But while I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, I don't think he's going full gas. He's just trying to keep himself in a good position so he doesn't get swarmed, but he's got Tadej Pogačar locked behind him. As we see, Tadej Pogačar moves up to the side of him. They're side by side, and then with about 650, 575 meters to go, right in that area, we're going to see Romain Bardet back there for DSM. Throws in a massive acceleration on the right side. As the road starts to bend to the left, it looks open for the DSM rider as he's trying to throw in the first big attack here on the Mur de Huy. Only problem, he's got no luck because Michael Woods, the Canadian, riding the front, he moves all the way to the right, shuts the door down on Bardet, and Bardet's got to turn the gas off. Now next up, as we start getting a little bit further, Tadej Pogacar is still in a good position. We're going to see all of a sudden, as Michael Woods and Tadej Pogacar are sitting first and second like this, we're going to see Bardet push hard again at about 300 meters to go. There on Tadej Pogacar, that'll move Tadej Pogacar left, and then Bardet will throw in an acceleration at just under 300 meters. Now Tadej Pogacar has had enough at about 200 meters. The Slovenian throws in a massive acceleration, gets the instant gap, and we see it's two Trek Segafredo riders, Ciccone on the left and Skilmos on the right, coming over Michael Woods. Now Tadej Pogacar's got that gap at 100 meters. He's going to look back, and what's he going to see? It's Skilmos coming along with Mikel Landa, Michael Woods sitting 4th position, and then Ciccone back there in about 5th. Set at 75 meters to go. Tadej Pogacar look one more time over his shoulder. Then he makes it to about 50 meters to go. Does a third check over his shoulder, and at 25, the Slovenian's celebrating as he crosses the line. You look under the armpit, you see it's Mikel Landa and Skilmos suffering at the limit to get second for Skilmos here at Flèche Wallonne, and third for Mikel Landa. 4th, Michael Woods, who led most of the way up the Mur de Huy here proper, will round out for 4th. 5th on the stage will be another Trek Segafredo rider, Ciccone, that held on and did a great performance to put 2 Trek Segafredo riders in the top 5 here at Flèche Wallonne. But nobody could beat Tadej Pogacar. And why? Well, when we see some of the interviews, we know why. Because when we saw this, Vervaeke talking in his interview, he said he wished he would have saw some more attacking, and that was the only way to beat the Slovenian. But another way to look at today's race, UAE team members were almost absolutely perfect throughout today's Flèche Wallonne, and it's hard up here on the Butterfly Effect for me to call anything perfect, because I don't ever remember having a perfect victory throughout all of my career. I have about 100 wins during my 25 years of professional racing, and when I look back, even on the victories, some of them felt like they were perfect, but you could always find some kind of details wrong. But today, UAE team members were magical. They rode the right guys to begin with. They never panicked. They rode it steady, smooth. Every time when you saw attacks, George Bennett would slowly pull everything back and control it. Then when George Bennett started to die, you saw Diego Ulisses that did a fabulous job on the penultimate climb here at Flèche Wallonne to set a hard tempo, but not so hard that he still can't pull over the top. Because remember, if the Italian rider goes full gas on the Col de Sheriff and blows, all of a sudden you only have 2 riders, which means Tadej Pogacar only has 1 Mark Hirschi to be able to control everything coming into Mur de Huy. So you still need Diego Ulisses to go up the Col de Sheriff, down the descent along the river, and get Mark Hirschi as close as he can into the final climb, the Mur de Huy, which he did perfectly. So when I'm dissecting today's tactics for UAE team members, it was magical, spot on. You can't get it better than what they did here at Flèche Wallonne. And when you're talking about the competition, well, you guys had to go somewhere, and you had to go sooner, and you had to start making some big attacks with about 75 kilometers to go if you wanted to put UAE team members under real pressure here at Flèche Wallonne. Or if you're like Team Ineos, maybe you just don't work with them at all from kilometer 0 when they were chasing that group of 8 to begin with, and you just leave UAE team members to have to do everything. Maybe they're down a few more riders, and you don't have a fabulous Diego Ulisses going up the penultimate climb and Mark Hirschi up the final beginning part of the Mur de Huy to put Tadej Pogacar in a magical position with 900 meters to go, starting when all the attacks were going to really be a big-time threat. Tadej Pogacar can do his own job there from 900 to the top, which he did magical here to win back-to-back Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne. Now, can the Slovenian win the trifecta with LBL? Well, he's got Remco Evenepoel showing up for LBL, so now he's finally got some head-to-head, straight-on competition with the Soudal Quick-Step Remco arriving for LBL. Should be an exciting race this weekend at Liège, Bastogne-Liège. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.